Hi, I'm Michael Yardney, and in our current property markets it seems like almost everybody's got an opinion on real estate. There's plenty of armchair experts out there as well who are keen to weigh in on the debate whether it's the topic at hand is property a good investment, should it be new, should it be old, should it be inner suburbs, should it be apartments versus houses. Everyone's got an opinion. But today I'd actually like to maybe have a bit of a chat about should it be houses, apartments, or what's the best investment. As you know, I've been investing in property for many years. In fact, more years than I'd care to admit. And only recently I'd noticed I've been having the same conversation over and over again. For example, last week I had a robust conversation with a relatively new property investor. Now, he was adamant he'd worked out the secret to amassing a small fortune through property. He said, forget units, forget townhouses, I've worked it out. What he said to me was, if you want to get ahead in real estate, I realised what it is. You've got to buy houses because the value of property is always in the land. A house depreciates in value, it loses its value over time, but the land almost always increases in value. It's the only true way to become wealthy through property. Now, disregarding the fact that I tend to disagree with a one-size-fits-all statement such as this, I also happen to disagree with the investor's philosophy. His core philosophy is wrong. I've heard this argument many times. It's the land that appreciates and the house that depreciates, so buy the land. While there is some truth in that latter, look, in previous blogs I've explained that not all land's created equal. I'd actually rather have an eighth of a block of land under my share of an apartment building than acres of land out in the middle of nowhere. So not all land's equal, but there's more to it than that. You see, in my opinion, there's a great case for apartments as top performing investment properties. Many years ago, people lived in apartments because they couldn't afford a house, so they compromised. They either bought an apartment or in general they rented an apartment or flats as they were called. But this is no longer the case. Put simply, significant changes to our population profile and our lifestyle priorities are feeding a strong trend in apartment living. Today we're living very, very differently to how our parents did. The number of people living in each household has been shrinking. We're working longer hours, we're starting families later in life, and we're increasingly time poor. This means proximity to cafes, shops, transport and lifestyle amenities is becoming more and more important than owning a piece of land with a big backyard for the dog or having an extra bedroom for the kids. At the same time, baby boomers who were previously content living in their family homes for years after their kids moved on, well, they're now increasingly seeking to sell up their big, high-maintenance 4-bedroom home so they can live in smaller, lower maintenance, in particular lock and leave abodes, but again they want to be near the amenities and the shops and the cafe strips. When you add to this our rapidly expanding population and in general our nation's ongoing housing shortage, it becomes clear pretty quickly that apartment and townhouse living is going to be the type of accommodation that's going to be in strong demand in the future. Just have to look at the facts. Single or two people households are on the rise, and now they're comprising about 60% of the housing market. If you add to this the fact that the Australian Bureau of Statistics suggests that there's going to be an additional 1.7 million single-person households over the next 2 decades, that changes things, doesn't it? They also predict that couples without children will eventually outnumber the typical nuclear family, and sooner rather than later, and the takeover of that could well be in 2031. This means not only are we going to require more housing to satisfy the needs of the growing population, because each household is smaller, but we're also going to need, in general, smaller sized dwellings to keep up with the new type of demand. Of course, property developers have already figured this out, and now we're building fewer traditional detached houses, opting for more medium and higher density housing instead. Now, as an investor, it's important to understand the type of property that's going to be in continuous strong demand, both by owner-occupiers and by tenants in the future. So there's little doubt this means turning your attention to apartments is the way to go. I guess you could then ask, so which sort of apartment? If you've been following my blogs, you'd know I'd steer clear of most new and off-the-plan apartments. That's because in general, they're priced too expensively because they carry a huge developer's margin and hefty marketing costs. However, there are plenty of well-established, well-located apartments, established apartments with spacious floor plans, and then price brackets most investors can afford. Oh, one more thing. I also like looking for apartments with a twist, maybe one that you could add some value to through renovations. So if you're wondering, well, Michael, what makes a good investment as an apartment? Well, an apartment makes a good investment, I guess I would say, is one that's got a wide appeal to a large range of owner-occupiers. Even though I'm not planning to sell it, but they're the ones that push up prices of similar properties around mine. This means I look for apartments that are in the inner suburbs, not in the inner city, ideally located, I don't know, 10, 12 kilometres from the CBD. As I said, I avoid the CBDs because in general here there's an excess of new and off-the-plan properties. I look for apartments within walking distance to the amenities that young people want. They want to live near shops, restaurants, cafes and public transport. I'd like an apartment situated in a desirable tree-lined street in a nice neighbourhood, not on the main roads. I'd like something that's a bit architecturally unique, not generic high-rise apartment complexes, and in general they're oversupplied anyway, and they don't really have much unique about them to excite future investors or buyers. I like a more intimate size, and by that I'm not talking about the apartment, I'm talking about a complex. Something maybe in the range of no more than 20, 25. I avoid the big mega towers where there's dozens upon dozens of the same apartments. I like apartments that are well soaked in natural light with a pleasant view. And I like an apartment kitted out with some sort of unique feature to it, something that makes it a bit different, something that makes it a bit special. These type of features are going to set your apartment aside from the competition when it's for rent or eventually for sale. So in summary, there's always going to be demand for houses in the future, but there will be a demand for apartments in the future because of how people live. So while there's always going to be people wanting to live in the outer suburbs, more and more of us are going to want to live near to work, near to amenities, and that means apartment living. Increasingly, demand for these sort of properties means that apartments are going to have as good, or if not better, capital growth and rental growth over the medium to long term, which means they're going to make great investments for you, whether they're 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartments, or even the occasional 3-bedroom apartment. If you want to learn a bit more about what makes a good investment, where they're located and what you can do, why not have a chat with the team at Metropole Property Strategists? We have no properties for sale, but access to every property on the market. With offices in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, we'd love to sit down with you and have a bit of a chat. And if you're in Perth, Adelaide or other parts of Australia, we can do it over the phone or by Skype. We'd be more than happy to have a bit of a chat about how you can get started in the property market, or how, if you've already got a property portfolio, we could review your portfolio, see where it's going well, see what could be tweaked, and see how you can get to the next level.